Bastian, how are you today?
I'm good, Nico. I'm in Singapore. It's a rainy day, but I'm very excited to talk about wine and markets for the next half an hour.
Fantastic. So, welcome everyone to the Decanted Portfolio. This is a new episode. It's being recorded on the 12th of December. We are very close to the Christmas festivities and we have a lot to talk about. There's a number of new events that have happened in markets this week. And also, we have a very good idea on what to talk about in terms of wines for this episode, right?
Yes, absolutely. Today we're gonna go west. I don't know if we want to maybe let the surprise to our guests about which region we are going to talk, but we are going to go west. We are going to New World. So we'll discuss about it in a couple of minutes.
Yes.
And maybe we should give a disclaimer, Nico, to start with. What do you think?
Yes, perfect. So we keep the surprise as we want to put the markets in context for, a few more minutes. And the disclaimer is that this is not financial advice. What you will get today from the episode is never a suggestion to buy anything. We don't know you, so we cannot judge your personal situation, so we cannot recommend anything. So if you have to invest, invest with your own judgment, right? And on the wine side, you need to be over 18 years old or whatever the age that is the legal age to drink in your country. Pay attention, don't drink and drive and consume alcohol only when you are at home or outside without any transportation system or any working system that is managed by you, okay? So with this, I think we need to start making comments on what has happened in financial markets in the past few days. The situation has been volatile. We have some macro news, and I think many things to tell. Where do we start, Bastien?
No, I think, I mean, you're totally right. If I had to keep one word, I mean, I will keep two words for this week for me. Volatility is the first one because we really see things going up and down. I mean, we have started this podcast almost a month ago, and technology, tech companies were really, driving all the growth. And we have seen this last week that this is no longer the case. There's some big surprise. There's company going down, such as Oracle, for instance, which has been hugely impacted by their last quarter results and the decrease of their free cash flows and like the fear that they will have to increase a lot of their debt, and therefore their price now the value went down below even before the AI rush with the contract signed with OpenAI. So that's I mean what was a big surprise. And when we talk also about volatility, is that we have seen some record as well this week. So on one side we have some decrease, on the other side we have some increase, and we have two record highs which were reached, and more thinking about like the old economy, the old indices, if I can call them like this, which are Dow Jones and S&P 500, which were at their record high this week.
Yes.
And so, Nico, what else about the market? What can you tell us maybe about some specifics and what you have noticed?
See, thank you. So you are focusing on the stock market, super important. The Oracle story is big because they are very close to the US administration. They are investing a lot in cloud infrastructure. They're doing the US first type of investments that the Trump administration wants, but they are also taking a lot of debt, as many AI companies who is following us knows about this discussion on the AI gossip about, what is the doubt around overspending, which companies will survive. Oracle not only went down, but it burned 100 billion in their market cap, okay, in one session. So big deals there. But it's not only about stocks. Gold, I was just checking the screens to have the right numbers. Over the past week, gold moved from 4,200 to 4,300 per ounce, so positive performance. The dollar did very poorly. In the month, it lost 1.3%, which is a lot for a currency versus the euro. Only in the past 5 days, it lost 0.74 to the week closing. So some assets go up and some assets go down. As you mentioned, good stock markets reaching a peak point. Not every index did, the Nasdaq didn't, But it has to be noticed that over the past month, the growth in US stocks has been only, both Nasdaq and the S&P, only been 0.7%. And for Europe in the past month, 0.04, despite very good numbers in the week. So volatility, which is a change of price both up and down, if it's down is a problem, if it's up is good news, but continues to stay with us. So apparently the year has been very positive, but if you stay in markets every day, is very challenging, and we'll talk about it. In any case, as you are mentioning that markets or some of the indices, S&P 500 and Dow Jones, have reached a top valuation point, which wine region comes to mind?
So as I said, and I'm sure some people already, found, that we were talking about America, because we are talking about American indices. And so when we were thinking about this podcast, we say, okay, we have these two traditional, because they are traditional because they have been, available for a long time. So why don't we go to traditional wines in the US? And of course, we thought about California, because California is, as you probably know, the largest producer of wine in the US, the most mature, wine producer in the market in the US in terms of production, in terms of consumption as well, because they consume a lot of wine, imported and also local wines. And so that's why we want today to talk about California One. I want to talk about Opus One. It's one of the most, if not the most famous Californian wine. I had the chance to taste it several years ago when I was in the US, and I will explain to you why I had this chance and what happened. And of course, to talk a little bit about the taste, because it is quite interesting when you know which companies, because there are two, are behind this very success story in California. But maybe Nico, you could start to talk about the region, because there's not only Opus One, but there are several others, very good wines, thousands of acres of wine, and thousands of producers.
Yes, I will bring a couple of maps. I'm looking at the screen just to tell you that Opus One, if you are a wine connoisseur, you will know the name. Very, very famous. Top wine. We'll talk about it. It is from Napa Valley, and inside Napa is from the Oakville area. But it's a wine that now I see it costs 400 euros. So it's not for every day. It's one of those beautiful mammoth bottles, which are incredible and fantastic within the world of who likes to try these things and who can also buy them. So I will bring in a couple of maps. Lost the map that I wanted to show you, but now we recovered it. Let me show you this. We are in the wine map of California. California is made of 129 wine regions. And so it is difficult to summarize. What I want to show you is this section where we have the North Coast, which is north of San Francisco, and we have the Central Coast as key areas. But the way they are organized is super interesting. So we have top north, Mendocino and Central Lake or Clear Lake areas, which will be lesser known to the non-American consumers. But as we go south in the northern coast, you see that there are some beautiful areas. It will be known Sonoma Coast, you see the hand of the mouse on the left-hand side, and Sonoma Valley more in the center. But there are world-famous, I would think, areas of the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, like Alexander Valley, Dry Creek Valley, the third best wine on the planet this year, according to Wine Spectator, is coming from there, and Russian River. We'll make a quick comment about those. As we go further south from Sonoma Valley, we have, not south, but more on the inside, Napa, and Napa per se is split in different regions. Rutherford, Oakville, where Opus One is from, or Stag's Leap, to mention a few. But then we go down to Carneros. All of these areas are influenced, if not directly from the Pacific Ocean, from the Bay of San Francisco and San Pablo. Okay, so we'll discuss about the weather for a minute as soon as we can. And as we go down into the Central Coast, there's a part of Santa Clara Valley, Santa Cruz Mountains, less relevant in terms of famous wines outside of the US. There is Monterey. And as we keep going down towards Los Angeles, Paso Robles is another beautiful, important area, this time for the Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay, until the very end of Central Coast on Santa Barbara. Out of all these regions, we could do entire podcasts on any single part. Before going to Bastian and Opus One, I just want to say that Sonoma is all about variety of grapes. Napa is about Cabernet Sauvignon mainly. Alexander Valley, Russian River, Carneros, Pinot Noir, and Chardonnay. And as we go down further to Paso Robles, Cabernet Sauvignon as well. The weather of these areas is all influenced by the Pacific Ocean, and there's a number of valleys in the north coast that keep these narrow spaces full of fog all year long and clear, cold nights, but the sun is powerful by the day, and so we have magic weather that offers elegance and also richness and ripeness and character to the wines. Okay, very quick overview of California in its entirety. We will dedicate different podcasts to different regions. Now, back to you, Bastian. Opus One, what is about it? What happens in Napa?
No, thank you, Nico. I mean, you're totally true. I think that if you had the chance to visit California, there's I mean, the Northern California and Southern California is completely different from one to the other one, because your Southern California, of course, is Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, a little bit north, San Diego, a little bit south, but you are almost in Mexico. You have a lot of sun, you have a lot of heat, and San Francisco is just like 1,000 kilometers north around, but you have a complete different climate because of the geography of the San Francisco Bay, because of the mountains, as you mentioned, which and you have like a very cold seawater, okay, with a lot of heat, and therefore you have a lot of breeze, you have a lot of fog. It's interesting because in some extent it could remind me as well Cape Town, where I lived a couple of years, and you have more or less the same conditions. You have very cold water, and you have mountains, and you have a hot temperature. So I mean, this combination is super interesting because you can combine, of course, the freshness of the fog and the breeze, which is super important for wine, because if it's too hot, you cannot. The level of alcohol is too hot, is too high, and you can't make wine. If it's too cold, of course, you don't have enough sugar in the grapes, and you don't have enough alcohol in the end. So that's why it's a perfect combination, which works really well, and that's why Opus One. I mean, they made the decision to go to northern part of San Francisco Bay. We are, of course, in Napa Valley. We are in Oakville, Napa. And this is where basically you have among the best wine of California and of the world. So quickly about Opus One, what are the root cause? I mean, where this wine is coming from? So first of all, it's a partnership between two amazing wine producers. I would say almost the best of the US. So the name of the guy is Robert Mondavi. So he already passed away, but he's the one who created this group, which is very famous in the US. One of the largest producer of wine in the US, a couple of hundreds millions. if not billions. And they made a partnership with Baron Philippe de Rothschild in France. And so you see immediately the link, because we talk about Bordeaux in one of our previous podcasts. So we have, and Nico mentioned it already, we have two places, two locations, two people who master Cabernet Sauvignon, because we have exactly the same kind of grapes between Bordeaux area, border regions, and this part of California. And so they decided to go together and to build a new brand, because it's a new brand, and they have done an amazing job. And so if we look at the grapes, what we find in the bottle, it's if I want to be French, I could say this is like the best expression of Bordeaux in the US. Okay. If I want to be Americans, I could say it's the best American Bordeaux in the world. So it's really Bordeaux style. Combination, the grapes are so Cabernet Sauvignon, so this is what you find in Bordeaux. Petit Verdot, which is what you find in Bordeaux as well. Cabernet Franc, this is what you find in Bordeaux. Merlot, of course, what you find in Bordeaux, and Malbec. So you find it in France as well, but more in Cahors regions. You find it in South America, mostly in Argentina. But they use a little bit of it. And of course, they have learned from the expertise of these two groups, wine groups, which are among the best. So they have, of course, the best technique to produce wine, best winemakers, and they have really built an interesting story. And honestly, I had the chance to taste this almost 20 years ago. So you see, it's not a new brand, of course, been built like a couple of decades ago. And basically, we went to a restaurant in New York City, because my company was based in New York, and we went in Grand Central. I don't know if, suppose, Nico, you know Grand Central, which is the train station in Manhattan, the most famous one. And it's probably one of the most beautiful train stations in the world, because the ceiling is amazing. It's so beautiful, and they made a lot of very good restaurants where you can have a view on the train station. And I drank here to celebrate a business deal with my boss, and I still remember the taste, this wonderful taste. So it was full-bodied, very ripe cassis flavor. You have some spice also coming from the aging, and you have all the characteristics of an excellent wine. I mean, a superb wine, because it stays in your mouth, forever, and the nose is fabulous. You can keep it and aging for more than 20 years, no problem at all. It's, of course, as Nico mentioned, expensive, but I think this is the kind of wine you want to try to test once at least in your life, or even just a glass. It's enough to enjoy and to like it. But honestly, superb work. And if we look at the compositions and the blend, it's a very Cabernet Sauvignon driven. It's depending on the years, because they change every year, but usually around 80% Cabernet Sauvignon. So more like left bank in Bordeaux, because in Bordeaux, you have the left side of a Garonne River, and you have the right side of the Garonne River. So we are more on Pauillac style, okay, than Saint-Emilion, where you have more Merlot. And definitely in terms of characteristics, you can have like all the complexity, but you have, of course, in the finish, vanilla, hint of coffee, cigar box, and this kind of taste, which are really, really amazing.
Oh, fantastic. These wines are beautiful. They tend to have a high price point. Opus One is a special one. Good connection with France there that you explained. And in general terms, if you don't know the wines of Napa Valley, they tend to be opulent. They tend to be luxurious in general. They tend to be super long and persisting and super rounded. I think the cigar box there is a very good link with the aftertastes that you can have in your mouth. And sometimes you have these chocolate blocks. Sometimes you have these mocha espresso flavors. Inside the Napa Valley, every producer is different, and the sub-regions are different. The Rutherford area, which is not where Opus One comes from, is a bit more earthy dusty, more spices, is greener. Oakville is more rounded, creamy, and opulent, as we said. Of course, the American style wines in general, and Napa even more, tend to use American oak barrels that offer more vanilla and cream in their flavors than the French or Slovenian oaks, but the use of wood and new wood in general is extended in the US. And so this underlying cream is everywhere, which is not for everyone. I personally love it, and it gives a completely special character to those wines. Without comparing with the Opus One, which is a star in the region, I had the chance just to offer a second view to try another stellar producer doing Cabernet Sauvignon there, which is Joseph Phelps. One of their wines is called Insignia, which is another incredible Cabernet Sauvignon. And we haven't discussed in this podcast yet the links between price and value and quality of a wine. It doesn't mean, but we'll dedicate a separate podcast to this. An expensive wine doesn't need to be better than a cheaper wine. Of course, if you have $400 and $10, you will notice the difference immediately. But what you need to find there is two things, which we'll discuss another time, but it's complexity, the number of families that you can recognize in the nose, not in the mouth, but also the persistence in your mouth, which is the point about Opus One and the Cabernet Sauvignon from Joseph Phelps. They stay in your mouth. You can count on the seconds. You go after 10 or 15, the wine is there. Try at home if you can drink as soon as you can, if you have the right legal age. Drink a normal wine that you have at home. 2, 3, 4 seconds, they will fade away from your mouth. If it's a good wine, it will be 5, 6, 7 seconds. Imagine to have some wines staying there with their character and spices. And this is the beauty of Napa Valley, really there. And it's amazing. I found a map, but I don't want to do a mess. There's a map of Napa Valley here, which I'm sourcing from Amazon, which you should be able to see. Let me bring this here. You should be able to see, the page needs to go here. You can see here Rutherford in pink, St. Helena in the north, Oakville, Stag's Leap on the south. They are probably the most relevant regions, okay? Just to give a bit of context to this. Having said that, what else has happened in the markets? What else can we say about our sponsor, which is Pantaray Adapt?
No, I think that we really what we can say, and I think it's a trend that we have seen over the last few weeks now. It's really the volatility of this market, which is, I mean, going up one day, going down the other day. I mean, there's no consistency, and you know, even with the Fed decisions, because I think we didn't mention it yet, and you know. The Fed, so which is the American central bank, they made the decisions to cut interest rate by a quarter point basis this week on Wednesday night, and this decisions was as like a balanced impact because on one hand we saw at the beginning you know, a positive answer from the market because it was what everyone was expecting on the market. There was like a high probability that this cut will be made. However, because the Fed give minutes of, you know, they every time they give minutes, meaning like transcription of, you know, what has been discussed at the board while we were making the decisions. People realized that there was no consensus, no clear consensus among the board members. And which generated some questions and some stress from the market about what will be next. And knowing that also, I think, Nico, we saw some change in the bond markets also, because like bond market has been reacting, maybe starting to protect a little bit in advance on what could be next in the coming months. No, what do you think about this?
See, absolutely. No, important week. Zooming out for a second on both monetary policy and the markets. It has been a very positive year for stock markets in the US, in Europe, and in Asia. And so if you don't invest every day, it looks almost too simple to get good returns, or if we want to be less elegant, to make money in easy ways in markets. The reality is that the ride of stock markets this year, which is ending up right now around the plus 15, 17% in Europe and the US, depending on the indices, 20 for the Nasdaq, more or less. The point is that the adventure, if you were looking every day, it has absolutely not been linear. And the Fed, as a US central bank, has an absolutely key role, but also the administration, which is governing the federal government there. Basically, in March on the S&P, we were at minus 20. So either you have the gut and patience, or if you can ignore what happens, you could buy at the beginning of the year, wait patiently, and you could have done a good return. But the normal thing to happen is that investors get scared. In the ride of going down to minus 20, many sell, often at the wrong time. You would lose money, you cash out, then the market recovers, you wait for a bit of validation and you buy back, but later than the optimal point. So not for many, or typically is not for many, to get the year-to-date gains if you don't resist in whatever the asset for the long time. So yes, markets and some indices are at the peak. It looks like it has been easy, it has been absolutely dramatic, and in the drama of the past few weeks, markets not only looked at AI and future prospects, you mentioned Oracle at the beginning of the podcast, but they are also looking at the health of the US and European economies, where GDP and economic growth in general continues to be positive and stable. In Europe, actually the forecast is for growth to accelerate, which gave a good impulse to European markets in the past few days. But in the US, we are unsure because employment is fading down. More unemployed, more initial claims for people asking for help because they have no jobs anymore. After Thanksgiving, there has been a spike from 44,000 was the last initial claims to over 230,000 help requests in a week. So the central bank needs to cut rates to support the economy and employment, to make the cost of borrowing less expensive, to make the cost of saving, or not the cost, the investments in savings less rewarding. But on the other side, prices in the US continue to fly high. Inflation is still around 3%. And so if the Fed cut interest rates as they are doing, inflation will tend to go even higher. This is what the Americans and in general no consumers want. And so the last interest rate cut of Wednesday, it was really expected by market participants, but it has been a balancing act. If we cut, the central bank said, we support employment. But if we keep on cutting, as this has not been the first this year, we'll actually push inflation higher. So the Fed decided to cut for the last time maybe in the cycle, saying we are at a level of interest rates that will support employment, they think, but we will try to keep inflation controlled. Markets had a good reaction. Stock markets on Wednesday, not a good one on Thursday, and a bit of a recovery on the S&P at the end of the session yesterday, not for the Nasdaq. So not to give too much details on the nuances of this, but markets, monetary policy, the state of the economy are all interlinked, and it is absolutely not clear what will happen in 2026 to the US economy, inflation in the US, inflation in Europe, geopolitical noise, and therefore to the stock markets. Okay, what we do in Pantarei Adapt, and Bastian and I work or have founded the company which is called Pantarei, where we develop inventive technologies which are part of financial market insights to make investing smoother and reliable in all market conditions. We use our AI software engine every day to read markets without forecasting and to try to compose an asset mix or the asset allocation of a portfolio exactly to balance macroeconomic news, sentiment in the market, fears and enthusiasms, but also price trends to always have the right asset allocation for the current market conditions. And the situation is much more difficult to interpret than you would say from toppy stock markets. Okay, so this would be the summary around what has happened in the past few days. Okay? What else to say? The episode is coming to an end. Bastian and I had a productive and busy week, and we continue to work closely to markets. You can follow us. Now this video will be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. We have channels in WhatsApp, which are called with some different names in different languages, but they will go around in English. Angels and Curious Investors by Pantaray is a public channel. You can follow us there. We have a newsletter on Substack. Is pantaray.substack.com. Register, follow us. And what else to say? A big goodbye, right?
Yeah, a big goodbye. And of course, if you have any questions and if you want to engage with us, we'll be more happy to answer and to talk with you. So of course, you can also send us email. First name Bastien or Nico at portar.ai, and we'll be more than happy to give you the link to a podcast, newsletter, etc., or just to talk.
Okay, thank you guys. Bye bye. See you soon.